All right, everybody. We have a phenomenal episode tonight. I'm like a kid during Halloween, gathering all the candy right before it's time to go get the what do they call it, trunk or treat now these days. Which is
Yeah, right.
kind of creepy sounding, I guess. I don't know, but anyway, we have Barb Terry from TenPoint Crossbow here in Mogador, Ohio. On. I'm excited because I am an Ohioan. Go Buckeyes! And we have a little interesting story from Kevin. I think jumping on here, Kevin, what happened this weekend for you?
Yeah, so I was going hunting this past Saturday and I drove like 45 minutes to get to the property. I walked about it's probably a half mile to the tree stand. I put my bow, on a pull rope at the base of the tree. I climb up with my bag on my back and I sit my bag down on the landing of the tree stand, the ladder stand, to clean it off, to clean the leaves and all off. And I just looked down and I couldn't grab my bag fast enough. My bag starts falling. So I'm like, it's not a big deal. Well, I was wrong. The bag fell on my bow. I get down. The strings are still on the cams and everything. I think everything's good. So I get up. I get all my hooks into the tree and put my bow and I go to knock an arrow and I see my peep sight's gone. I don't have a peep sight anymore on my bow. So needless to say, I got back down, drove 45 minutes back home and got a spare bow and practiced with that all morning to go hunting that evening.
That is a crazy
So
story,
yeah,
man.
I got to go get my bow fixed.
Well, at least you didn't pull your equipment up like I did a couple of weeks ago up in Maine
I
and
was just there.
and hit a branch. And I'm trying to pull my equipment up. It's stuck. I get the bow up to in the stand, and the branch still had a hold of my arrows, and the
Oh
arrows came
man.
flying out straight down to the outfitter that's also a chamberlain
Oh jeez.
that was
Oh
coming to the
jeez.
stand to make sure I was okay.
What the heck?
Oh
That's
man.
Oh
crazy.
yeah. So I was dropping arrows down to the outfitter who's also a game warden.
Oh, that
Wow.
makes it even better.
Man, ouch. That's double ouch.
I'm a
uh,
professional.
yeah, right.
But
Yeah.
he's a really
Yeah.
good guy. He's a friend of mine. That's the bad part,
Oh
I
You're
didn't
man.
want to toss any arrows down at him, brought in
hey,
Right.
making it rain in a bad way.
Yeah, I did. I
It's
did.
always something, but you got to make best of
Yeah.
the situation, right? Like I could be mad about it, but there was nothing I was gonna do. I just laughed. I was just like, all right, well, time to walk back, and I was just drenched in sweat after that. I went home, washed my hunting clothes, practiced with the bow, and just went back after it.
Well, you can do.
And I think the thing with that, Kevin, too, is like we every one of us, all hunters, of course, every one of us on here too have those same exact scenarios. We've all
Mhm.
done that. Like the my it seems like for me with my compound, the equipment rope always gets wrapped around something really
Oh yeah.
freaking weird, like the cam, and that's like spinning, and I'm like, what the heck? How'd I do that? Or it's ripping the quiver off, or so maybe we should
Hmm.
engineer a new solution to this, or something like that.
All right.
Well, we want to welcome Barb from TenPoint Crossbows tonight, and I want to focus on the technology you guys have in your crossbows, and basically let you lead this conversation. But I'll tell you, we probably have a whole lot of topics to cover.
Okay. Well, just to give you a little background about me, I've been with 10 Point since 1996. I started as a pro staffer, and back at the end of 2003, the job I worked at, they eliminated my position, and I was a trainer there, and they were getting rid of that division, and I was hanging out there in a state that I didn't live in before, and I had moved, and without a job. Just so happened I was coming up to Ohio to do an event for 10 Point, and one of the owners was doing an event in another city, and he heard what happened, and he told my friend, he says, you tell her to get a resume up to us immediately. So I did my event, went back down to Tennessee, did a resume, sent it up, and within 3 months I was working full time for 10 Point, and
That's
that was
really
over
cool.
20 years ago now. So
That's
God's
awesome.
plan. That's right.
Yeah,
I started
absolutely.
out in warranty and customer service. I had to learn how to work on the bows before I could take phone calls. So I learned how to work on them, repair them, got on the phones and did all of that. And then I got real gray real quick. And then I ended up getting into the training side of the house and customer relations and doing all that. and now I'm in marketing, and I have my hands on all the new bows before anybody else. So poor Kenny, he has to rely on me to drag him around to show him all the brand new stuff every year now.
Oh,
Yeah, poor me.
Poor Kenny.
Breaks my heart.
But I think one thing that I have to start by saying is, I have absolutely so much respect for the technology and engineering, the physics, and everything that goes into developing the new, not just the new models, but the continuous duration of models you guys have had in the past. And again, you're head to head against another company that produces crossbows. I won't say the name on here, but I also shoot those quite a bit in the hunts that I do. And I also shoot TenPoint as well as a lot of other companies' bows. But I would have to say that like the TenPoint crossbows that I've had in my hand are by far some of the most supreme tools. If I want to even, I don't know, if they're weapons, but like they're just engineering marvels. As you sit and you start to diagnose like how they're made and look at them, and it's pretty phenomenal.
I could put 3 bows side by side of the new bows, and it would come out to about the size of my very first bow width-wise.
Yes.
And it's just phenomenal how the technology has come around. It just blows my mind. When back in 2007, when we came up with the first compact limb systems, 2006, 2007, somewhere around there, we went from 20 some inches wide to just skinny, 17 and a half inches. And we thought that was absolute tiny stuff. We're way smaller than that nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So what is the newest model for TenPoint? Where are you going? Because I think we could talk all day long about all your models, but what's the newest model? And of course, everybody kind of probably in the crossbow world, obviously when it comes to marketing and sales and looking at numbers, it's just like cars. We want speed, and so I think the interest that I have is what are you coming out with? What's the newest thing and where are you going?
This was our 30th year in business, and we came out with 2 top end bows, one that was a reverse draw and one that's a forward draw crossbow. And both of those had Trigger Tech triggers in them. So we took Trigger Tech technology with their fantastic triggers and put that in our crossbows. And, the fast one, the reverse draw, is a 515 foot per second bow. We thought we were doing great at the 505, but this 515 obviously beats that. And when you have something like that, the target companies are going, oh my God, how are we going to stop these things?
Absolutely.
Thank goodness for, target company like Big Shot.
Yep.
They work very close with us, and they use our bows to test their targets. And, if they can stop our bows, they feel good about it. But they've had a lot of sleepless nights, let me tell you.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
It's not just the speed, it's the kinetic energy behind it.
Yeah.
Kinetic energy is outrageous. So
for sure.
I just had a buddy of mine order TRX 515 through me, and he opened that thing in front of me when it came here, and I was just like, oh my gosh, the thing is slick with the Garmin Zero.
The range-finding scope.
Oh my God, what a setup!
Salivating.
What a setup. Yeah.
We offer that with the Garmin Zero and with the
Oracle.
Bird's Oracle or our Marksman Elite Scope.
Okay.
So there's, different configurations.
Mm-hmm.
The other new bow, the forward draw, it does 440 feet per second. You go, well, that's slow, but you're talking a forward draw bow. And with forward draw bows, the power stroke is shorter. So when you have a shorter power stroke, you need a whole lot more poundage to, get the speed and kinetic energy that you want. With the reverse draw, when you elongate that power stroke, you don't need as many pounds of the limb poundage, but you get a ton more speed out of it because that string is going a heck of a lot further
that makes sense.
Down the way with that arrow.
Propelling it a little further in time.
It is.
Course. I know, we'll get into, I'm sure, lots of controversies we move through this conversation, but the one thing to me that I have to say I respect out of all these companies, and that's every one of you that produce crossbows on the planet, is just the technology and the marvel of engineering that these things have become. This is not just the old, the old school Stonewall Castle where there's a wooden crossbow chucking and it's like, and honestly, like I have to tell you, like my own personal hunting career, I call it career, but just endeavor and adventure in my life. It started in high school with an old, and I'm not, Barnett makes a fantastic crossbow, but they're one of some of their first oldest models. Like, all of them were underpowered. Of course, it's a long time ago. I'm old now, but I missed the biggest whitetail of my life. The very first time I went hunting in Kippick, Ohio, in a glacial erratic rock. And I had one bolt, no idea what I was doing as a kid. And I remember that doe jumped that fence, and here this buck came behind her, and he was so massive, he was webbed in between his antlers, and he horrifies my dreams yet today as a 43-year-old guy, and it's crying still about it. And he stops it. I whistled or something. I didn't know how to go, man. I didn't know, man. I was just like, whistle. I made some noise and stopped and turned and looked right at me. And I remember I pulled the trigger, and it was like, blink. It's like the bolt, like it's like it started curving immediately, no speed, and stuck about 15 yards from the deer. And of course, I had one bolt, and man, I was hooked for life. And so I think, if people can step back, people always criticize, like, oh, these are cross guns and they're so good, and then like, they're marvels of engineering are what they are in reality.
Yeah. Well, and that's a concept that one of the competitors to TenPoint put out on the market, has rifle accuracy at 100 yards, right? And that's all great because they do. I mean, I can tell you, I have the 440 that Barb mentioned about, and you literally can shoot that over 100 yards. But what people don't understand is at 100 yards, you're talking 8 foot, 9 foot drop. I mean, it's serious.
Right.
And then it's still an arrow. And that is the biggest thing people forget is it's an arrow. Everything that impacts the arrow out of your compound impacts the arrow out of that crossbow. And so it's fun to shoot those long distances, but it's still an arrow.
I think that's my biggest gripe with the whole crossbow like thing right now is like people, they get complacent. They think they can shoot 100 yards through the woods, through sticks, things like that, and it's still like Kenny said, an arrow. It still drops. It drops a lot at that distance. Deer's still going to jump strings. You know what I mean? You're not shooting a gun, and I think that's where people pick up a crossbow, especially the newer ones that have all this technology and shoot fast, and they just think it's a gun, and they're just going to shoot 80 yards at a deer and be perfectly fine. And you can't.
I can tell you,
at a certain point, you still got to stay ethical.
So I'm gonna brag on Barb for a minute about a couple of things. So first of all, this is a woman that is literally in the Archery Hall of Fame, #1.
No, I'm not. I've been there, but I'm not.
Oh, I thought you were inducted.
No, I went to the induction ceremony.
I thought you were inducted.
Well, we're going to work on that.
Two friends of mine.
Yeah, right. We're going to fix that.
She is, and has trained me as an international crossbow trainer, right? And that is true. And I went through that certification process here not too long ago. And one of the things that she talks about is the ethics in that process. Mm-hmm. And, you can't teach people enough that it's still an arrow. It's still a weapon, and it's designed to do something specific, but it's still an arrow. I can shoot my compound 100 yards, doesn't mean I should.
Right. Exactly. Right. I think that's like my whole biggest thing with this is like, I don't care if you shoot crossbows. Like, I'm not against crossbows, but you got to remember,
know your range.
It's not a gun.
Well, and again, I deal with this all the time, like hunting across the world. If you're in a plain situation and like I've been practicing with a lot of these different bows for a long, long time, and it depends on the situation, the environment, the hunter. Like, you have to basically, it's like choose your expert of efficacy as to what you're doing, but know your tool. I think, Barb, maybe you can second that. Like, know your tool. Know your tool.
That's it. I can't go out there and hunt with a compound. I can't pull the 40 pounds back. Mm-hmm. I used to do some things in my past and I was injured and I can't do it. But I found out several years after I got into crossbows that I can pull longbows and reap curves back.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I do own 2 custom longbows, and I wouldn't go out there and take 30 and 40 and 50-yard shots with my longbow, but
Yes.
I'm fine with taking a 20-yard shot.
Mhm.
Will I take a 30, 40, or 50-yard shot with a crossbow? Heck yeah, all day long. That's not a problem. But I practice and practice and practice.
Absolutely. And that's something that I want to get across everybody out there, because I get so sick and tired. And again, there's some I see it in my friends, I see it in people in my family. Okay. There is a element of testosterone in guys that says, you got to establish spirit. Well, here's the thing. I'm getting old, folks, and like my eyes aren't what they used to be. And I can hunt with a compound still, but my dad can't. And he made that switch. You know what? He can still go out and hunt with me. And those young kids that can't pull back compounds, they can go out and hunt and learn the crossbow. I had a girl and her dad, I think, or grandpa, sent me a picture today, and it was one of the best pictures, like Kevin saw it, of the year so far for me. And there was no deer. It was like a girl and her grandpa and a blind, and they were hunting with a crossbow and a Clovis in the end of the bolt. And that means everything to me. That people are out hunting, because we're losing hunting. We're losing our youth. We're losing older people's ability to get out and participate. And what these tools do is they allow every one of us to continue the love of the hunt and the pursuit.
Well, Kenny mentioned about me preaching about ethics, and I do. And Kenny, I'm sure you have heard me say this multiple times talking to different people, but when I talk to customers or anybody else, anybody in a class, I tell them, I am not a testosterone fueled male. I don't need to have the biggest, baddest, fastest, strongest crossbow out there. I want something that's going to function and function over the long term. I don't want something that's going to function once and be done. I want something that is going to hold up and serve me the way I want it to serve me. And, I want something to hold up. I'm not going to buy something that, I just need to shoot it once or twice, throw it away, and buy something new.
Yeah.
I don't need all that speed. I don't have that need for speed, but I have a need for being ethical and responsible out there in the field.
And I will make a statement here that probably this is going to rile some people up in the hunting community and the outdoor industry, and I think that's fantastic because we have these conversations. Number one, I respect any hunter that's using a weapon that is a legal weapon. Hunt your game, no matter what you're choosing to hunt it with, because I just don't.
Agreed.
Okay, that's where I'm coming from. Traditional bow, I suck at. I mean, instinctive shooting, I suck at. We all know that from the bow fishing trip. I didn't get anything. But I shot 50,000 times.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up, but
anyway,
I'll have to send you pictures. One of my doe with the longbow, and one of my big old carp with the recurve.
Oh man, I'm so jealous. I need like a pistol crossbow or something for bow fishing for that. But going back to I spent my life hunting the compound, right? And all the brains of compound. I shot everything, and in crossbows I shot everything, and I just love hunting. But I'm here to make a statement after hunting all kinds of different situations. I'm sorry guys, but this is true. Crossbows, modern crossbows, are the most ethical way to harvest any animal on the planet.
I would agree.
They are.
I agree, because you're forcing it in close. Number one, if you're ethical, you're not taking those stupid long shots at them, and so your target zone is more defined, right? You have a better chance of hitting that target zone. Mm-hmm. And with today's arrows and today's broadheads, it's hard to not make a good lethal shot quick, right? Yes. It's just hard, and it is great. I want to go back to something that you was talking about with seeing the kid, and bragging on TenPoint, who also has the Wicked Ridge line. They have a line of crossbows that fit just about anybody and everybody. Light, heavy, long, short, narrow, wide. I mean, you name it, they've got it. And I would challenge anybody to find one that doesn't have quality in it. I mean, they're just solid. But coming to those kids, it's easier to get a kid used to a rifle when they're starting out with crossbows, because that comfort with them, they get that feel. There's a little bit of what I would say recoil or whatever that comes with the crossbow, but it's different than with a gun. But they get to feel in action. And I've got grandkids, that shoot these things. I told Barb, I've got one that takes crossbow out and it's his crossbow. He goes up, he shoots it, and is just awesome with it. But you tried to get him to shoot a gun. He's like, why? I want the crossbow. I mean, that's just what he's comfortable with and loves. Eventually he'll get into rifle hunting, and I have no problem with that. But man, that crossbow, that's his thing. And they feel more comfortable with it. There's not that loud noise. There's a whole lot that goes there that gives them a comfort that's just incredible.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool to get kids involved sooner. You know what I mean? Like, because they're not shooting compound bows until they're much older. So getting them involved sooner and getting them hooked I think it's a great tool. And my statement about like being complacent and shooting long shots is I don't hate on crossbows at all. I just see guys that think they can shoot it like a gun, and that's all I'm saying is you can't just get it out and do that kind of stuff.
Wing it. Yeah. And I think
I mean that's with anything you do, but I just see it more and more now because crossbows are becoming it's becoming bigger in the hunting industry now that every state just about lets you use one now. So
and I don't want to get too down the road of, I'm not against any other kind of bows. Like, I love my compound bows. So don't get me wrong. Like, I love grabbing. I like an assorted variety personally. Like, I don't always eat Mexican. I like Chinese. You know what I'm saying? So like sometimes I need a burger. And I definitely love barbecue. So I think, I like, depending on where I'm going, what I'm doing, the game I'm pursuing, I might grab the compound bow, the crossbow, and heck, maybe someday persistence hunt with a spear. I haven't done that yet. That looks fun.
I'll pull the tin wells.
Yeah, heave ho.
Straight down.
Yeah, but
that'd be awesome.
So I have a story from a trip I took, and I want to explain like why I believe this is something that people should think about too sometimes. And that is, I'm hunting an impala in South Africa when I first got there the first night, and this impala was 30 yards away. I'm gonna make it quick. Scared to death. Something was coming in to try to eat it. Who knows? In Africa, everything tries to kill you. But anyway, the impala was looking right at the hide, and my guy looked at me and I had a vertical bow. And he goes, "Take the shot now." And I had light knocks on. Okay, and I settled the pin. I took a breath and I let release, and I took the shot. And I have it on slow mo video, so I can prove it to people out there. Put it on. The arrow hit the mark I should have went to, but that impala saw the arrow coming out of my vertical bow, like saw the arrow coming at it, had a fast enough reaction time, like the lightning animal they are, that it dropped about 18 inches. You can see the arrow go shoo right over its back and hit a branch behind it and stick in the ground.
Seen that video.
That impala took off. Okay. And this is on, I think, a Hunt Tech video. The second day, you'll see what happened. And so the second night, I'm like, okay, if this impala comes back in, he's going to get a crossbow this time. And he came back in and he started chasing the ewes around. There's a salt block out front and there's some hay. I always remember, it's great. One of my hunting memories. I always never forget. And it's on video. He's chasing these ewes around. Well, then he comes in and the crossbow is already ready to rock and roll. And he stops by the salt block, and he was not the perfect position, slightly quartering to. And so I waited for my guide to let me know what was up with that. And my guide said, with a crossbow you're using, right through the front shoulder, send it through the back, middle of the back legs, it's going to be completely fine. And I got the green light, and I sent it, and it blew through that. Like, the impala could not even move the bolt was traveling over 500 feet per second. Okay, the crossbow. The bolt went through the front right shoulder, blew a huge hole here, blew out the back of the body cavity into the hip, out of the hip, and gone. Never found the bolt. And then the thing died in 10 yards. But my point is, that impala couldn't even move, and that bolt was through that, and it harvested that animal as ethically as possible. Now, obviously, a lot of guys shoot with compound bows too, depending on the situation, just like white-tailed deer, string jump. Barb should have some input on this. Like, how effective is it when you have a bolt that's going so fast and the animal can't even react? I don't care how good of a compound hunter you are. Okay, if you can hit a dime at 50 yards of your compound, that's great. But that animal's moving really fast and away from you. It doesn't matter. The bow's not fast enough.
They can still jump it, with a crossbow, but the other thing that I preach is, if it's looking at you, don't shoot. If it's not looking at you, you've got, another tenth to another half a second anywhere in there where it's not going to be able to jump the string or any of that. It just, again, just being ethical about it. If they're looking at you, they've got the deck on their side of the house there.
Well, heck, I'd say if it's looking at you, shoot with a smile. just kidding.
So, Barb, I think you another brag on Barb. She does a lot with some youth, handicapped youth, if I remember correctly. But she's also got some good stories that go around that. You want to share one of those?
Well, I've got lots of those to share. That's not a problem. In fact, I'm leaving tomorrow around noontime. I'm heading down south to Amish country. And there's a group of Amish and Mennonites and some English folks that have a group. And we have 32 hunters. They're going to be present Saturday night for a one evening hunt.
That's
It'll be
awesome.
our largest group. And we will probably, I mean, obviously we hope for 100%, but we will probably get 75 to 90% of those folks having a deer on the ground in that one night.
That's fantastic.
Just the way they set it up.
Now, is this, not, I don't know if you can be the specific, but I'm in Knox County, Ohio. Is this like Holmes County, Berlin? Like where, is there, I don't know.
It's around just, probably as the crow flies, about 20 minutes northeast of Millersburg.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I like how she answered that question, guys. Did you notice that? Like she's every hunter. Well, that kind of, sort of, yeah, down the road a bit.
Crow flies,
Yeah, I love it. What's a GPS looking?
A couple of years ago, I had a female hunter, and it was her first time hunting. And her brother are both disabled. Now, this is an Amish gal. Her and her brother both have the same disease, and they can't walk. Now, both of them are very tall, but they can't walk. And the brother had gotten a deer with us a couple years prior, and I think he got a 7-point, 6 or a 7-point. And I wasn't guiding him, but I was the guide for her, and she's wheelchair bound. And to get from where we were, we rode in a side-by-side, and we put the wheelchair in the back, and we got that out, and we got her into a blind, lifted the blind up and got her underneath there. And she was having a hard time during practice with seeing the crosshairs and all that. She wasn't used to it. She never had the chance to shoot anything. So I have a bow set up that has a secondary scope on it. You've got the normal scope in its place. And then in the 2 o'clock position, I've got another scope. And I have it set up, sighted in for 25 yards. So I don't have different yardages. I have to do the Kentucky windage, which is not a problem with the kind of places we hunt. So we're sitting in the blind, and her big thing is she wanted to get a deer no matter what, but she would love to get a deer bigger, more points than her brother had gotten the couple years prior. So we're sitting there, and there's some does, and the does are playing around, and just never really had a chance to lock in on anything. That's okay. We're having a good time. I've got a cameraman in there. My tried and true cameraman that I had for several years. We were a team. We would end up with different people, but we had her, and it's starting to get a little bit towards the end of shooting light, and we had 2 does and a buck come in. And the does are messing around, and they're getting the buck all jittery, and he's wanting the corn, he's wanting everything. Finally, we get him in a position. I sight that bow in, or the scope in on that buck, and I told her to squeeze. She did. Of course, everything went running in every direction. The buck took off to about our 1 o'clock. And so we sit there and we're happy. Now it starts to rain. It's like, oh, here we go. Always fun. It's getting darker. And we needed to get her out of there and get her back to this one area. So we had to get her out via getting her out of the blind and pushing / carrying this young lady that was close to 6 foot tall in this wheelchair in these fields. So that was fun in the rain.
Wow. Wow.
Get the dog out there to try and trail it as the rain is washing things away. We found some blood, and then we lost blood, and then another dog come out there, and then the one dog wanted to play with the other one. So it just turned into a real absolute mess. We got up out of there, went back, and about a little after midnight, I get a series of photographs. The one dog was sent out there again by itself. It trailed the deer to a pond. This deer was out in the middle of a pond. They could just see it out there, and the dog is, pointing, tiny little dog pointing on this deer out there. And it's like, seriously? They had to go and get a canoe from someone they knew not too far away, put the canoe in, didn't have a paddle, so they used a folding chair and a piece of wood as paddles, got out there and drug that buck out. And so we were all happy. Okay, she got the deer. I mean, it definitely was the deer she shot. We get, some wet pictures of this deer, because not only was it raining, it went into this pond. She just beat her brother's size, so she was happy about that. A couple of weeks later, the cameraman that we had went hunting down in Kentucky, shot a deer. Guess where it went?
Right into a pond.
Right into a pond. They had to do a canoe retrieval out of that one too. It's two hunters within just a couple of weeks had to do water retrievals.
That's funny.
These doggone deer. It's like, man.
That's something else. That's something else. And I guess one question I'd like to throw at you, if you can, in the time we have left. I know guys probably have questions too. We have about 4 minutes remaining and lots more things to talk about. How fast can crossbows get, do you think? Like, what is the next speed that crossbows are going to achieve? Is it 600 feet per second? What's the next mark?
Eventually it will. It's just, are they going to stay together?
Yeah.
I mean, it'll happen. There's just no doubt about it. It's just, are they going to stay together?
Yeah. And I think that's a real challenge for those of us that live in the broadhead world, because, one thing that we have to deal with is these just absolutely insanely vicious amounts of kinetic energy propelling these bolts forward out of these machines. And I think that's a pretty awesome thing. I love it. I love the challenge. But it's just amazing to see a bolt come out of a machine like that, because it just sounds like a rocket. I know you guys have all shot these machines and these crossbows, and you can just hear it sail out with the energy, and I call it violence, but really it's just amazing.
Well, what amazes me is back in '96, when I first started with TenPoint, I'd had another brand prior to, and I could shoot Robin Hoods quite often, which I did with field points. But as soon as I put a broadhead on, I didn't know anything about it. When I put a broadhead on, I wasn't hitting very well at all. And I was discouraged, and I wasn't going to ever hunt again. Then I run into somebody that was a pro staffer for TenPoint and convinced me that this is the route I needed to go. And I had somebody take me by the hand and say, this is the type of broadhead you need to use. And I used that broadhead until that same broadhead, I swore by it. I still do for slower bows, but until we started getting faster and faster, those open in flight, and they never would open in flight before, but these fast bows will open them in flight.
Yeah.
So you're right. Broadhead companies have to, step back and figure out what to do, just like the target company.
Yeah. Well,
they do that.
It's just coming from what I do every day. The smallest millimeter minute variation of weight disbursement in that broadhead, or blade flexure or vibration, is amplified by that speed, and over a distance of 80 to 100 yards, you might end up with a broadhead, if you're not designing it properly, that is accurate as all get out of 20 to 30 out of these bows. But then you get out to 60, 80 yards, all of a sudden they're grouping to 8-10 inches apart, and no one knows where they lie for a while. So it's just amazing to see the I don't know what you call it, centricity that needs to be
Yeah.
put into the design of these broadheads to handle the speed of crossbows. Of course, from my position, that's what I'm always most interested in. Now, you guys out there, like, when you choose to shoot a crossbow, I think it's one thing that people should know. Like, think about what you're using and what the energy is when you do that.
It drives me crazy. We were talking about social media right quick a little while ago, but social media, yeah, I just use this. I take it off of this bow and I use it there.
Right. You can't do that.
Yeah, that's a hot mess.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's
You're
a
gonna
hot
have
mess.
you're gonna
You
have
see it
blades
all the
opening.
time.
Yeah.
And the guys, oh, my bow shoots straight. No, these guys have older bows because they don't change their string and cables. They haven't done it in 10 years. And it shoots flat out to 60. They only need to sight it in 20 and it's flat to 60. That is a bunch of bunk. Well, apparently they don't know what 60 yards is. To them, 60 yards has got to be 10 yards. Who knows?
Absolutely.
And everybody they gotta boost their
egos.
Hey, I shot this deer at 65 yards. Yeah, I bet it was 20. Or I bet they just like fishing. We all fish.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Just like fishing.
We're right at the last minute, aren't we, Josh?
Yeah, we are. I hate to cut you off, Barb. I'd like to have you back on anytime.
Yeah,
in fact, even next